The story kicks off with Lin Zhenxin, a total workaholic who's always grinding at her job. Everyone notices how hard she's hustling, especially her boss, who makes sure to shout her out in front of the whole office. They even throw a little party to celebrate her dedication. Zhenxin's feeling on top of the world. Her job's going great, and her love life's looking good too. But just when she thinks everything's perfect, things start to get messy. Her boyfriend reminds her about their date, but Zhenxin's stuck at work because her boss keeps piling on more tasks. Her coworkers, trying to look out for her, drop hints to say no, but she just can't. She's too focused, and that doesn't sit well with them. They're upset, but Zhenxin doesn't realize just how much this is going to affect her. Feeling bad about leaving her friends hanging, Zhenxin decides to go grab some snacks and drinks to cheer everyone up. But when she walks in, it's not what she expected. Her coworkers start complaining about her right in front of her. It hits hard. They're saying she works too much, that it's not worth sacrificing her free time for just a little extra cash. They pity her, thinking she's some boring person who only cares about her job. Zhenxin's heart sinks. She hides, hurt by the thought that her hard work doesn't even matter to them. Later that night, Zhenxin looks for comfort in her old high school memories. She digs through her box of keepsakes and finds her diary, covered in stickers and pictures of her idol, Andy Lau. The memories flood back. She remembers how she used to dream of going to one of his concerts, but that never happened. Tears start to fall as she longs for the carefree days when life felt so much simpler. Flashback to high school. Zhenxin wasn't the smartest or the prettiest, but she was always the sunshine in the room. Her best friends were Chao Xiaoqi and Mei Mei, and when she wasn't daydreaming about Andy Lau, she was scribbling love letters to him in class instead of paying attention. There was one guy who caught Zhenxin's eye, Ouyang Fei Fan, the basketball star everyone was obsessed with. Every time he was near, Zhenxin would get all nervous and shy, especially when he thanked her for opening the cafeteria fridge. She'd never miss one of his games, cheering louder than anyone else. From the sidelines, she'd admire not just his skills, but his good looks. Her friends knew all about her crush, and Zhenxin cherished those carefree moments. But there was one thing that always got under Zhenxin's skin: Tao Min, her classmate and neighbor. Min was everything Zhenxin wasn't: pretty, popular, and smart. Zhenxin couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy whenever she saw Min getting piles of love letters from guys. It seemed like every day, Min had another letter to sift through, making Zhenxin even more envious. It all started when Min's best friend, Shen Xiaoyi, made a bold move. One day she gathered all the love letters that had been secretly shoved into Min's desk and laid them out for the whole class to see. She even warned everyone, "If I catch anyone leaving love letters for Min, you're in big trouble." But then, among the usual notes, one letter stood out. It was written in English, but the grammar was all wrong. Zhenxin had always been a bit jealous of Min, but she never really cared enough to complain about the letters until now. This one, though, definitely caught her attention. Zhenxin froze when she opened her desk drawer later that day and found an envelope with her name on it. But it wasn't just any envelope, it was addressed to Lin Truly. At first, she thought it was some kind of prank. But when she read the letter, her heart raced. It was a cursed letter, telling her she had 3 days to send it to 5 people or face something bad. Her palms went sweaty, and without realizing it, she slammed her desk. The whole class turned to look at her, and for a second, she felt like everyone could hear her heart pounding in her chest. At home, things weren't much better. Zhenxin's parents always praised her older brother, who, despite looking like a punk, aced every test. They'd give him the best food, while Zhenxin barely got by with plain rice and whatever scraps were left. Zhenxin was angry, so angry that she almost sent the curse letter to her brother, hoping it would teach him a lesson. But then she realized, if he got into trouble, she'd be dragged down with him. After a long internal battle, she decided to send the first letter to someone else, Teacher Huang, her strict math and homeroom teacher. Teacher Huang was notorious for his tough punishments. Zhenxin knew that firsthand after getting a bad grade and almost getting her hand slapped with his wooden ruler. But this time, she had a plan. As soon as Teacher Huang wasn't looking, she slipped the curse letter inside one of his textbooks, silent, quick, and unnoticed. Break time came, and Zhenxin just couldn't resist. she spotted her crush, Fei Fan, hanging out by the tree, strumming his guitar. He looked so perfect. Zhenshin hid behind the tree, just listening and enjoying the moment. To her surprise, Fei Fan even waved at her. But before she could get too excited, Min Min showed up and stood next to him. Zhenshin's heart sank as she watched them chat and laugh together. Her stomach twisted. So she turned and left, trying to ignore the pain in her chest. As she walked past Min Min's quiet house later, Zhenshin got another idea. What if she sent her the curse letter too? She slid the letter into Min Min's mailbox, feeling a sense of satisfaction. But now, with 3 more letters to go, things were getting tricky. She wasn't sure who to send them to until she saw Fei Fan in trouble. TaiYu, the biggest troublemaker at school, was picking on Fei Fan, pushing him around. Zhenshin watched as Taillou, who for some reason had become a school patrol officer, tormented her crush. This was her chance. Zhenshin quickly took the curse letter from her bag, slipped it into Taiyu's backpack while he was distracted, and ran off, hoping her plan had worked. She didn't know if the curse would really work, but for now, watching Taillou get a taste of his own medicine felt good enough. Later that day, Taillou and his buddies were hanging out when he pulled out a pink, scented letter from his bag. His heart raced. He thought it was a love letter. He couldn't wait to find out who sent it, so he told his friends to take off. With a grin on his face, he eagerly tore it open. But as he was reading, he didn't notice the car speeding toward him. Next thing he knew, he was sent flying onto the road, completely knocked out. Zhenshin was totally shocked when she heard about Taiyu's accident. She never saw this coming. Meanwhile, Taillou was fuming, swearing to find the person behind that cursed letter. He didn't waste a second, telling his friends to search every classroom for clues. That's when Sakuragi found something strange. Zhenshin's desk was plastered with Andy Lau stickers, just like the one on the letter. But that wasn't all. In her drawer, there were 2 more letters exactly like the cursed one. When Zhenshin got home from school, she was caught off guard. Sakuragi and Dahe were there, confronting her and dragging her to Taillou. Zhenshin was terrified when she saw Taillou. He looked so intimidating, with that weird hairstyle, those huge eyes, and that sneaky smile of his. Taillou pretended to want to be friends, but she quickly realized it was all an act. He was setting her up to be his personal servant, and his friends were ready to back him up. Taillou didn't waste any time. He put Zhenshin to work right away. She had to do the homework for the class that performed the worst, Taiyu's class. Oh, and she also had to buy lunch for him and his friends. Why? Because Taillou had threatened to hurt Fei Fan, the guy she liked. He knew all about her crush thanks to his friend who found a picture of Fei Fan in her desk. So, Zhenshin had no choice but to do Taiyu's homework and bring him food every single day. One day, Zhenshin rushed to Taiyu's class to hand him his homework. But just as she turned to leave, Taillou stopped her with a grin. "For all your hard work," he said, "I'll give you something special, a signed photo of Andy Lau." Zhenshin lit up, her face breaking into a huge smile. But as she reached for the photo, Taillou and his friends burst into laughter. It was all a joke. She felt humiliated, her smile fading as she ran off, trying to hide the tears. One day, Taillou tried to talk Zhenshin into skipping school and heading to the mall with him. Zhenshin was totally freaked out by the idea of climbing the school wall, but Taillou wasn't taking no for an answer. He pushed and pushed, convincing her to face her fear. Finally, with his help, Zhenshin managed to climb the wall. They made it to the mall, and Taillou and his friends immediately started roller skating, leaving Zhenshin stuck on the sidelines. She was all over the place, struggling to keep her balance, nearly eating it a few times. When Taillou noticed she wasn't having fun, he motioned for her to follow him. Zhenshin wanted to refuse, but she couldn't bring herself to. She just couldn't say no to him. The next thing she knew, Zhenshin was screaming as she lost her grip during their amusement park game and crashed to the ground. Taillou, not really caring, laughed it off, pretending to be concerned, but quickly went back to having fun when he saw she was fine. Zhenshin limped off to grab some squid meatballs for Taillou, muttering under her breath about the hard floor that left her aching. Suddenly, a group of people with baton burst onto the scene, and everyone scattered to hide. Zhenshin froze, trying to understand what was going on, before she saw the bullies targeting Taillou and his friends. One of them knocked Taillou down, and Zhen Xin watched in horror as they kept pounding on him. Without thinking, Zhen Xin grabbed Taiyu's fallen stick and hurled it at the bullies. That was all it took. Taillou and his friends fought back, and the bullies were soon on the receiving end of a beatdown. Zhen Xin was too scared to join in, so she ducked behind a corner while the chaos unfolded. When the bullies finally left, they caught sight of Zhen Xin's terrified face and her uniform, and she couldn't hold it in anymore. She screamed and scrambled to cover herself. The school staff caught wind of what happened, and soon Zhen Xin found herself in the principal's office, shaking in fear. She wanted to tell the truth, but Sakuragi silently signaled her to stay quiet. Dahi slid a photo of Fei Fan and Taillou across the desk, squeezing it as a warning. It was clear. If she told the truth, they would hurt Fei Fan. Scared out of her mind, Zhen Xin kept quiet, unable to defend herself. The principal wasn't having it and gave her the punishment of cleaning the swimming pool. Zhen Xin wanted to protest, but all the courage drained from her and she left the office feeling like a total failure. As she walked around the school, she spotted Fei Fan coming her way, and panic hit her. She scrambled to hide, trying to play it cool by pretending to read the school announcements. But her two best friends couldn't contain their excitement and shouted his name. Fei Fan turned, noticed her, and she quickly made a goofy face to avoid talking to him. But then he surprised her by complimenting her, saying he liked roller skating too. He even asked if they could skate together sometime. Zhen Xin couldn't believe it. Her heart was racing and she couldn't wipe the smile off her face. Her friends were going wild, saying that now Fei Fan knew her name and might even ask her out. Despite the mess with Taillou, Zhen Xin found a silver lining. She and her friends made the best of their punishment, laughing and dancing while they worked. Her heart was light, buoyed by the compliment from Fei Fan. While cleaning the pool, she sang to herself, still on cloud nine. Then Zhen Xin overheard something. She crept closer and couldn't believe her ears. Fei Fan and Min Min were deep in conversation. She listened, feeling a twist in her chest, as Fei Fan comforted a crying Min Min and even promised to be the father of her future child. When they finished talking, Fei Fan asked Min Min to leave. But as Min Min walked away, Fei Fan's gaze landed on something. A pool net that had appeared out of nowhere. Min Min looked freaked out, and Fei Fan tried to calm her down, telling her to leave before they got caught. Zhen Xin was still reeling from overhearing Fei Fan and Min Min's conversation. Heartbroken, she pretended to sink to the bottom of the pool, tears streaming down her face. Taillou jumped in without thinking, pulling her to safety. But when they surfaced, he was all choked up, barely holding it together. Embarrassed, he tried to hide his emotions, pretending to scold Zhen Xin, thinking she tried to end her life over the punishment. After they dried off, the two ended up sitting on the school roof, where Zhen Xin accidentally found a love letter from Taillou to Min Min. It wasn't exactly poetic, just a bunch of song lyrics. Zhen Xin couldn't help but tease him. Taillou flushed red and crushed his drink can in frustration. Trying to lift his spirits, Zhen Xin shared her own secret love story, but Taillou, looking a little too determined, suggested they team up to break up Fei Fan and Min Min. That way they could both go after their crushes. It sounded like a bad idea, but Zhen Xin agreed to help anyway. They started tailing Fei Fan and Min Min, hoping to catch them doing something suspicious. Turns out Min Min and Fei Fan weren't secretly dating after all. They were just meeting to take care of a little black puppy they both adored. Taillou felt a huge sigh of relief. It wasn't about romance, but that didn't stop him. He was determined to keep Min Min away from Fei Fan, and he came up with a sneaky plan to do just that. After school one day, Taillou's friends blocked Min Min's path, hoping he'd finally confess his feelings. But Min Min wasn't interested, not in him, not in his reputation for troublemaking. She just smiled sarcastically and bumped into him with her bike, which only wound Taillou up even more. When his friends left, Zhen Xin came out from her hiding spot. "Maybe it's time to give up. It's obvious Min Min's not into you," she said. But Taillou wasn't ready to back down. He had another idea. If he took the puppy, Min Min wouldn't have a reason to meet Fei Fan secretly. Zhen Xin was skeptical, but she agreed to help him pull off the plan. Zhen Xin got crafty, using milk to make fake paw prints to throw off Fei Fan and Min Min. Taillou was nervous, though, and kept telling her to hurry before they got caught. They managed to sneak the puppy up to the roof of the school. When they reached the roof, Genshin was surprised to see TaiYu gently petting the dog. She hadn't known he liked animals. TaiYu then decided that Genshin should take care of the puppy, at least until they could find it a new home. But as he handed the dog over, it suddenly peed all over him. Both of them froze for a second, then burst into laughter. TaiYu didn't even seem mad at the dog. As they settled down, Genshin turned to TaiYu and asked, "What should we name her?" TaiYu grinned. "How about Andy, my favorite idol's name?" Genshin wrinkled her nose. "You can't name a girl dog after a guy." TaiYu thought for a moment. "All right, then let's go with ND for short." But Genshin was still unimpressed, and soon they were bickering over the name. Their argument turned into a playful chase around the roof, both of them laughing harder than they had in a long time. In class, Minmin was sitting at her desk, clearly upset. Her dog had gone missing, and she couldn't shake the worry. Across the room, Genshin hid behind a book, but her nervousness was evident. Suddenly, Teacher Huang burst into the room, holding up a letter. "I've got a curse letter," he announced to the class, his face fuming. He scolded the writer, calling them foolish for sending such nonsense. Genshin froze, feeling her guilt rise. She wanted to confess, but the words just wouldn't come. After class, she headed to the teacher's office, determined to admit her mistake. But when she walked in, she was taken aback. TaiYu and Min were already there. The teacher was in full-on scolding mode, but TaiYu didn't seem to care. Instead, he flirted with Genshin, completely ignoring his own punishment. Before Genshin could speak up, TaiYu stepped in, taking the blame for the curse letter. The teacher sighed in relief and let Genshin off the hook, leaving her and Min stunned and silent. Later, in another room, TaiYu was getting an earful from his homeroom teacher and another teacher, both scolding him at the same time. Annoyed, TaiYu snapped, "One at a time, please." Genshin, pretending to leave, watched him curiously. The teachers went on about TaiYu's past, how he used to be a troublemaker, but still had some impressive achievements. After school, Genshin caught up with TaiYu, thanking him for covering for her. She also confessed she'd been the one to send the third curse letter to Min. TaiYu was mad at first, but when she apologized, he let it go. Then Genshin pulled out a book of poems. "You should try writing these," she suggested. "It might help you stay out of trouble, especially with the cheating rumors." She also hinted that Min might have a thing for him since girls were always so complicated. TaiYu chuckled at her idea, though neither of them knew if it would actually work. The next day, Genshin found herself at Fei Fan's basketball game, flipping through her old junior high yearbook. When she spotted a picture of Fei Fan with TaiYu, she couldn't resist the urge to ask him about their past. Her friends, busy reading a magazine, were shocked by her boldness, but Genshin didn't back down. "Do you know TaiYu?" she asked Fei Fan. Fei Fan hesitated, but eventually he opened up. "Yeah, we were best friends in middle school." His voice lowered as he told her about a tragic memory. One afternoon after school, he, TaiYu, and another friend named Ma Suyuan had gone to the beach. Suyuan challenged them to swim the farthest out in the sea within 3 minutes. TaiYu took the bait, but things went horribly wrong. Suyuan drowned during the challenge. Fei Fan hadn't let TaiYu try to save him, thinking it would be too dangerous. Ever since, TaiYu had blamed Fei Fan for Suyuan's death, holding a deep grudge against him. Genshin gripped the yearbook, everything falling into place. Now she understood why TaiYu had been so upset by the pond incident, and why he had helped her. It all made sense. TaiYu was still haunted by Suyuan's death, and that was why he felt so strongly about Fei Fan. Genshin felt a rush of determination. She wanted to help him, to heal the pain and guilt that weighed him down. With a deep breath, she grabbed a red piece of chalk and drew a line across the schoolyard. The challenge was set. She waited, skating in circles, eager for TaiYu to arrive. When he finally showed up, Genshin wasted no time. She surprised him by gliding toward him on roller skates and, with a grin, challenged him to a race. "The winner gets to make a wish," she said, her eyes glinting with mischief. But things didn't go as planned. Genshin fell flat on her face almost immediately, and TaiYu couldn't help but laugh. His teasing was relentless, but Genshin just smiled, shaking off her bruises. Despite the insults, she didn't give up. With a final burst of energy, she crossed the red line. She'd won. TaiYu was confused, still unsure of the point of the race. Zhenshin took a deep breath and finally spoke up. Fei Fan told me about Su Yuan, about everything that happened, and she explained. You helped me at the pond because you're still struggling with Su Yuan's death. You don't need to be enemies with Fei Fan. She paused, watching him closely. You should make things right. Taiyu's face darkened, and before Zhenshin could react, he grabbed her wrists, his anger boiling over. Don't tell me what to do, he snapped. For a moment his grip tightened, but then he stormed off, leaving Zhenshin standing alone. But she didn't back down. She chased after him, stumbling again, but determined. Taillou stopped and turned, his expression softening as he saw her. Zhenshin stood up, brushing herself off, and grinned. Let's race again, she said, the challenge still in her voice. Taillou hesitated, then nodded, his anger fading. As he helped her up, he silently realized the accident had been his fault all along. Zhenshin reminded him, the winner makes a wish, remember? Taillou, his voice quiet, asked, what do you wish for? Zhenshin smiled, her eyes softening. I just want to see the old Taillou. The mention of those words stirred something in Taillou. He remembered a time when he was simply a boy who cried over Su Yuan, watching his friend throw away half of his drink, but still smiling. He remembered how calm he felt, as if everything was going to be okay. The next day, the classroom was chaos. The usual mix of chatter, laughter, and clattering desks filled the air, but not for Taillou. He was calm, well-dressed, and waiting for the teacher to walk in. When the slim male teacher entered, the class fell silent, though some students reluctantly greeted him. Taillou stood, acknowledging him, though the rest of the class quickly went back to their loud, playful antics. Frustrated, Taillou slammed his hand on the desk, making everyone jump. The teacher, nervous, asked, Do you have any questions? His voice shook. The class went still as Taillou coolly asked about the last lesson. The teacher, a bit flustered, tried to explain they were moving on to Chapter 7, page 125, the Second World War. But when Taillou flipped through his book, the teacher quickly corrected him. That's the wrong book, he said. Things got even more awkward when Taillou insisted his friends open a book they didn't have. The only one with the right book was a student sitting at the front, wearing glasses. Reluctantly, Taillou and his friends joined him, the tension rising as the situation became more uncomfortable. Sunday arrived, and Zhenshin was ready to meet Taillou for their study session. She checked her makeup, feeling confident. But when she saw Taillou, he teased her relentlessly, calling her look too fancy for a temple festival. Annoyed, she walked away, but Taillou chased after her, snatching her bag and carrying it just like Zhenshin used to do for him. Zhenshin, though irritated, couldn't help but feel a rush of happiness as they walked together. The best part? Hearing a group of girls whispering about how handsome Taillou was. But in her excitement, she didn't see the car speeding around the corner, its horn blaring as it neared her. Taillou acted fast, pulling Zhenshin into his arms, protecting her from the oncoming vehicle. The atmosphere grew tense as Taillou reluctantly pulled away from Zhenshin, gently urging her to step aside as he walked along the highway. To Zhenshin's surprise, the once grumpy and aloof Taillou had transformed into someone sweet and unexpectedly romantic. When they arrived at the restaurant, Taillou quickly found a table while Zhenshin went off to order. While waiting in line, Zhenshin was taken aback when Min Min and Xiaoyi suddenly showed up and noticed Taillou sitting alone, buried in his studies. After a moment of hesitation, Min Min walked over, encouraging Taillou to work hard and offering to help him. Zhenshin returned with the food only to hear Min Min offering her biodata to Taillou, making him blush furiously. As Min Min left, Taillou seemed puzzled by the comment Min Min had made about him misspelling destinies as Disney in his last letter, especially since Disney was his pen name. When Zhenshin asked about it, Taillou just shrugged and said they had talked. After his run-in with Min Min, Taillou became a dedicated student, even inspiring his classmates to clean up the classroom and change their ways for the better. But Zhenshin couldn't help but wonder if Taillou had truly changed for her, or if Min Min's encouragement had sparked it. Every time Taillou smiled at Min Min, Zhenshin felt a twinge of sadness, knowing that Taillou had feelings for her. One day while Zhenshin was at the bookstore buying the latest textbook, she spotted an Andy Lau poster and couldn't contain her excitement. She hugged it tight, letting out a loud scream as she shared her dream of seeing him live in Taipei. TaiYu smiled and promised that one day he'd get Andy Lau to sing just for her. But their joyful moment was interrupted when the shop owner yelled at Jen Shin for touching the poster. In a flash, TaiYu grabbed her hand and whisked her away. Later, when they studied together, TaiYu amazed Jen Shin with his brilliant math skills he'd honed through science Olympiads. He was eager to help her with the subject, which she had always struggled with. Their enthusiasm caught the attention of their friend, who watched in awe. As they walked Jen Shin home afterward, TaiYu declined to go all the way to her doorstep. He said he had to see Min Min. This led to some playful teasing between them, where TaiYu showed Jen Shin a keychain of an Andy Lau doll he had planned to give to Min Min. Jen Shin, feeling mischievous, snatched the keychain from his hand, delighted by the surprise. As they walked along, Jen Shin asked TaiYu, "What do men find attractive in a girl?" TaiYu smirked, mentioning that Fei Fan liked Vivian Chow, but he himself preferred cute girls like Yuki Uchida and Noriko Sakai. Jen Shin complained that TaiYu only liked Japanese actresses, but he just grinned and said nothing. Out of nowhere, Jen Shin then asked him to teach her how to rollerblade, since Fei Fan was so good at it. TaiYu agreed, ready to be her teacher. The next day, after school, Jen Shin grabbed a magazine with a Japanese cover artist on the front. She was eager to copy TaiYu's idol's style. As she got closer to her house, she spotted a trendy girl outside, rocking a bold hairstyle and makeup. It turned out she was waiting for Jen Shin's older brother, San. Jen Shin couldn't help but stare at the girl's cool look, the same style as the one in her magazine. She shyly asked, "How do you get your hair like that?" Just then, San showed up, ready to scold her, but to Jen Shin's surprise, the girl stepped in and defended her. "Don't let him talk to you like that. I'll show you how to style your hair," she said. Jen Shin smiled, ignoring San's annoyed glare. The next day, Min Min was freaking out when she found out Fei Fan had injured his ankle. Things got tense fast when TaiYu walked in, dropping hints that Jen Shin's friends weren't really Fei Fan's friends. TaiYu was all smiles as she greeted Fei Fan, which rubbed Mei the wrong way, but Xiaoqi calmed her down. They noticed Jen Shin was missing and figured it was the perfect time to get Fei Fan's attention. Fei Fan's eyes wandered around the room, landing on Jen Shin. She looked different. Usually her hair was all over the place, her bangs pinned up, and she wore glasses. But today, her hair was perfectly styled and no glasses in sight. As Jen Shin walked into the cafeteria, a smile tugged at her lips when she saw Fei Fan. TaiYu, sitting nearby eating noodles, also noticed the change in Jen Shin. With newfound confidence, she walked up to the ice cream counter. But when she grabbed a cone, she froze. Should she give it to Fei Fan? Before she could decide, TaiYu nudged her gently, urging her to go for it. Meanwhile, Min Min, feeling a little ignored by Fei Fan, decided to head straight to class. Fei Fan, though, caught Jen Shin's eye and complimented her on her new confidence. "Good luck on your exams," he added, smiling. Jen Shin's friends cheered, congratulating her on the change. But Jen Shin didn't look as excited as they did. Instead, her eyes drifted toward TaiYu, who pretended to be absorbed in his noodles. A few days after the exam results came out, everyone was shocked to see TaiYu ranked 10th. The excitement didn't last long, though. Soon, the new principal, Principal Chuan, took over, and he wasn't here to make friends. No mercy, no compromises. He cracked down on the students, especially the kids in class 317, including TaiYu's friends. Even the school patrol officer was replaced. The once lively class quickly became the lowest of the low, forced to follow his strict new rules. Despite the principal's harsh treatment, TaiYu wasn't about to back down. He stood tall, fearless. When leaving the principal's office, he even threw out a rebellious hand gesture as if to say, "I'm not afraid of you." But things went downhill fast when Principal Chuan accused TaiYu of cheating on his exam. He claimed Tai didn't deserve his 10th place ranking. The principal demanded to know if anyone had helped TaiYu cheat, but not a single student spoke up. So, to punish the entire class, the principal decided that everyone would pay the price. But TaiYu wouldn't let his friends suffer for something they didn't do. He stepped up, taking the punishment himself. His sentence? 50 laps around the field. As TaiYu struggled through the grueling run, the other students watched in silence, their hearts heavy with worry, but too scared to do anything. Meanwhile, Chiayi started a rumor that TaiYu had cheated, making everything worse. But Jen Shin wasn't having it. She knew TaiYu had earned his spot fairly, and she wasn't about to let anyone trash his hard work. She tried to talk some sense into Principal Chuan, but he wasn't having it. He shut her down immediately, even threatening to make TaiYu's punishment worse if she didn't stop. After what felt like an eternity, TaiYu finally collapsed from exhaustion, and that was the moment everything changed. Genshin couldn't shake the feeling that TaiYu had disappeared, like he wasn't the same person anymore. At her desk the next day, Genshin stared at TaiYu's doodles, lost in thought. Her friends complained about the principal's oppressive rules, but Genshin stayed quiet. Her mind was elsewhere. Then a sudden thought hit her. What if they boycotted the rules? With the help of her 4 friends, Genshin created flyers, hoping to rally the students to take a stand. But no one was brave enough to even look at them. Fear of the principal ran deep. Genshin wasn't about to give up, though. She knew she had to get the word out. But then Xiaoyi stepped in, blocking her from giving a flyer to Min Min. Genshin was starting to lose hope, but just when things seemed bleak, Fei Fan came to the rescue. He offered to help pass out the flyers, bringing his friends into the cause. Unfortunately, their secret didn't stay secret for long. Teacher Huang found out and slapped Genshin with 2 days of detention. At home, Genshin's parents weren't happy. They scolded her for her rebellious actions and grounded her. But that wasn't the end. After a call from Teacher Huang, their anger turned on each other, and Genshin realized her fight was far from over. Genshin was sitting in her room trying to focus on her writing when the sound of her parents arguing echoed through the house. Suddenly, the phone rang, and her mom picked up, only to quickly hang up on a prank caller. Thinking it was TaiYu, Genshin rushed to the phone, hoping he was calling. When it rang again, it was him, TaiYu, calling after his hospitalization, sounding concerned. She wanted to talk, really, but something made her snap, and she told him not to call for 2 days. TaiYu was confused, especially with the tension in the air from her mom's angry outburst. Genshin stood there, a million thoughts running through her mind, when she heard it, pebbles hitting her window. She stepped out onto the balcony and looked down. There he was, TaiYu, standing outside her house, pretending like everything was fine. But neither of them could hide it. The way Genshin's heart skipped a beat at the sight of him, or how TaiYu was clearly uneasy, though he tried to act casual. He said he was just passing by, but Genshin couldn't ignore the look in his eyes. She wanted him to open up, to tell her about whatever was bothering him. Just as he turned to leave, Genshin called out, asking him to wait. TaiYu paused, clearly nervous, unsure of what she wanted. When she returned, she had their beloved dog in her arms, and something about that simple gesture made TaiYu smile, his heart a little lighter. The next day, during TaiYu's punishment run, he stumbled, and Genshin rushed over. She checked on him, relieved to find he was just exhausted and dehydrated. But TaiYu surprised her by saying he was actually happy to be suspended. Genshin was taken aback. Why would he be happy about something like that? As they talked, TaiYu noticed her eyes drifting to the bandage on his arm, and with a quick smile, he pulled it off to ease her worry. Genshin laughed, half joking. Anyone who's connected to you seems to get into trouble. TaiYu chuckled and confessed he'd come looking for her because he remembered her advice about girls being indirect. His words hung in the air for a moment as they both tried to make sense of the mess between them. Later, TaiYu took Genshin to a playground lit up with colorful lights. Their dog, ND, trotted happily beside them as TaiYu handed Genshin a pair of roller skates. "I'll teach you," he grinned, and they spent the evening practicing together. Every time Genshin stumbled, TaiYu was there, steadying her, holding her hand, making her laugh. It was the kind of simple, carefree moment she'd been craving. The school festival was in full swing, with students and families filling the hall. The principal took the stage to announce the top 10 students, and everyone cheered when Fei Fan claimed the first spot, while Min Min beamed proudly at her 5th place finish. Genshin glanced at TaiYu, who smiled back at her with that reassuring grin. He was up next, surely for the 10th spot. But then, the unthinkable happened. The principal skipped over TaiYu's name, accusing him of cheating and saying he didn't deserve his spot. The words hit TaiYu like a punch to the gut. He stood up, shocked and confused, but the humiliation was too much. His knees gave way and he fainted, crashing to the floor. As his friends erupted in anger, the principal continued to belittle him, calling him worthless. Zhenshin's heart broke as she tried to comfort Taillou, but he just sat there, defeated, feeling as though his dignity had been stripped away in front of everyone. She wished she could do something to make it right, but all she could do was hold him as the room fell into stunned silence. Zhenshin couldn't take it anymore. Fed up with the injustice, she stepped up to the stage, determined to defend Taillou. Sure, she bent a few rules to grab the principal's attention, but he wouldn't budge, not a single word. Still, Zhenshin wasn't backing down. She challenged the fairness of a system that allowed rules to be twisted so easily. Just when it felt like all hope was lost, Fei Fan walked up to the stage, out of nowhere. He took a deep breath and admitted to cheating on the exam. He even said he was ready to face the consequences. Zhenshin was stunned. He was actually supporting Taillou. She couldn't believe it, but her heart swelled with gratitude. Fei Fan's father, however, was livid. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Fei Fan, cool as ever, shot back, suggesting if the principal could accuse Taillou of cheating, why not him too? The principal was furious, ready to punish him on the spot, but the students weren't having it. They gathered together, rallying behind Fei Fan. Then Mei Mei did something that shocked everyone. She stripped down to her shorts, ready to take the fall for her mistakes. The other students followed suit, confessing their wrongs too. Min Min even admitted to sneaking in a communication device. It was a moment of unity that no one saw coming. The homeroom teachers couldn't help but smile. The students were finally standing up for each other, all thanks to Zhenshin. She'd inspired them to take responsibility, to be better. She stood her ground, saying that a person's worth wasn't just about grades or following every rule. Everyone messes up. It's what you do next that counts. Fei Fan stood right beside her, clearly impressed by her courage. But Principal Chuan was fuming, ready to punish Zhenshin for her rebellion. But just as things were about to escalate, the former principal stepped in. He promised to work with Chuan to improve the school, calming the storm. The students, once divided, now stood united. Fast forward to the school's birthday, time for the annual water balloon fight. Zhenshin and Taillou teamed up, launching balloons at each other and laughing their heads off. Fei Fan was right there too, playing the protector to Zhenshin, while Min Min stuck with Taillou. It was pure fun and the laughter was contagious. Then came the school vacation, and the group went camping on motorcycles. Zhenshin paired up with Fei Fan and Min Min was with Taillou. Once they hit the campsite, they danced, had fun, and just soaked in the good vibes. That night, Taillou took a break to gather firewood. It was just him and Zhenshin under the stars, and he let his guard down. He told her that he found her personality way more appealing than Min Min's. He even joked that she was just as beautiful as her. Zhenshin blushed, but before she could say anything, she playfully kicked him, teasing him about his comment. The two of them shared a laugh as Taillou helped her carry the firewood. As they sat beneath the glittering night sky, Zhenshin turned to him, her voice serious. She asked him to promise something. If they ever went to different colleges, to focus on his studies, stay out of fights, and never hurt those who cared about him. Taillou agreed with a solemn nod. Then, in a move that caught Zhenshin off guard, he leaned in and asked for a favor in return. She braced herself for something serious, but he just smiled and said, "Promise me you'll never mix sesame oil with noodles." Zhenshin pretended to be annoyed, but couldn't help but laugh. She knew all too well how she always messed up the noodle orders. One night, a shooting star blazed across the sky, and Zhenshin nudged Taillou, urging him to make a wish. At first, he hesitated, but then he raised his hand, silently sending his hope to the stars. What they didn't know was that Fei Fan was quietly watching them from behind a tree. When the school exams wrapped up, Mei Mei rushed to Zhenshin with troubling news. Taillou had been missing for over a week and had even skipped the exams. Zhenshin immediately tried calling him that night, but he didn't answer. The next day, as Zhenshin hurried through the school hallways, she spotted Taillou sneaking into the principal's office. Something in her gut told her she needed to talk to him. Her heart raced as she followed, hoping to finally get some answers. But Taillou wasn't having it. As soon as he saw her, he tried to avoid her, walking off without a word. Zhenshin couldn't let him go that easily. She blocked his path, her voice shaking with worry. "Why'd you skip the exams? What's going on?" Taiyu's response was cold and dismissive. "None of your business," he said, brushing her off like it was nothing. Frustration boiled inside her. She couldn't understand why he was being so distant and uncooperative. "You always get into fights, don't you?" Zhenshin blurted out, unable to hold back her anger anymore. Taillou just stared at her, completely unfazed by her tears. His indifference only made her more furious. With a final tear-filled outburst, Zhenshin declared, "I'm done. We're over." She turned and walked away, her heart heavy as their once close friendship crumbled. From that moment on, they passed each other in the hallways. No words, no eye contact. It was as if they were strangers. On her birthday, Zhenshin returned home, expecting the usual quiet celebration. But to her surprise, there was an Andy Lau cardboard cutout standing right in front of her house. At first, she thought it was from TaiYu, but then she saw Dahei and Sakuragi grinning at her. They'd set it up as a birthday surprise. "TaiYu's been intentionally missing, but he remembered your special day," Dahei said, handing her a gift. "He left something for you, but you can only open it after you pass your university exams." Zhenshin's eyes lit up. She blushed, hugging the Andy Lau stand, feeling a wave of happiness rush over her. What was in the cassette? She had no idea, but it was clear TaiYu's gift was something she'd never forget. The next day, Zhenshin was all set to celebrate her birthday with her friends during recess. As she stepped out of the classroom, she spotted TaiYu walking by. Her heart skipped a beat. Could he be looking for her? She rushed to meet him, eager to hear about the gift he had for her. As they made their way to the rooftop, chatting about everything and nothing, Zhenhin handed him her diary, asking him to write his bio. But just as things were getting comfortable, Min appeared out of nowhere, holding an umbrella. Taillou greeted her with a warm smile, and before Zhenshin knew it, he was holding Min's hand. Zhenshin's excitement quickly turned into a wave of loneliness and disappointment. Trying to keep it together, Zhenshin asked, "Were you looking for me?" Taillou hesitated, then dropped the bomb. Min had confessed her feelings for him. Zhenshin's heart sank. She tried her best to hide the tears welling up, but she could barely manage a weak "congratulations." The truth was, Taillou didn't look thrilled either, and the moment felt heavy with unspoken words. Taillou, trying to lighten the mood, suggested she hang out with Fei Fan instead. But before Zhenshin could react, the sky opened up and rain started pouring down. Min popped open her umbrella and walked over to Taillou, leaving Zhenshin standing there. She quickly refused their company, grabbed her book, and bolted. Taillou called after her, but Zhenshin didn't stop. She ran as fast as she could, desperate to escape the pain, but in her haste, she slipped. Taillou rushed over to help, but she waved him off, tears streaming down her face. She didn't want him to see her like this. Once she was alone, the tears she'd been holding back finally broke free. The rest of the day was a blur for Zhenshin. Her mind was consumed by the pain, and she found herself lost in the keychain Taillou had given her. Mei popped by with some gossip about Andy Lau having a girlfriend, but Zhenshin wasn't listening. She couldn't care less about the rumors. Her heart was still in pieces. A few days later, Zhenshin walked into the classroom, only to overhear Chiayi comforting a tearful Min. Apparently, Taillou had left the country right after Min confessed her feelings. Chiayi warned Min to stay away from him, calling him peculiar. Zhenshin froze. Taillou was gone? She couldn't find him anywhere. Mei, of course, had more gossip to share, something about Taillou being expelled from school and then disappearing. But when Zhenshin walked into the room, the chatter came to a sudden halt. Despite her best efforts to keep it together, Zhenshin couldn't shake the emptiness Taillou had left behind. There were moments when she swore she felt his presence, like that time she almost got hit by a car, only it was Fei Fan who saved her. He seemed to want to spend time with her, but Zhenshin couldn't focus on anything but Taillou. She spent her days roller skating with ND to distract herself, but the ache never went away. Soon enough, though, Zhenshin realized something. Taillou had inspired her in ways she hadn't noticed before. His absence pushed her to work harder, to do better in school, and to become someone she could be proud of. And somehow, that was the one thing she knew she'd carry with her. While digging through her desk, Zhenshin stumbled upon a letter. It had an Andy Lau sticker on it, just like the curse letter she'd once made. Curiosity piqued. She unfolded it carefully and noticed something odd. The letter was folded in a unique way. Inside, a simple request. Would the lovely Zhenshin be willing to be his friend? After months of hard work, Zhenshin finally passed her university exams. To celebrate, Fei Fan, her study buddy, suggested a casual walk. As they strolled, Zhenshin thanked him for all the help, especially with math, a subject she'd struggled with. Fei Fan, ever thoughtful, reminded her not to forget the recording TaiYu had given him, a promise he made to TaiYu. On a camping trip, Fei Fan shared something interesting. He had caught Zhenshin and TaiYu hanging out. Turns out TaiYu hadn't always liked her. At first he'd hated her, but after reading the curse letter, Zhenshin's kindness caught his attention. In her letter, she'd apologized and encouraged him to make better choices in life. Instead of getting angry, TaiYu found himself intrigued, wanting to get closer to her. So he decided to become her friend. Over time, TaiYu's feelings for Zhenshin grew. He had saved her from drowning in the pool, acting without hesitation. When they studied together, he was so nervous, eagerly waiting for her to arrive. It was then that TaiYu realized he was falling for her. Even the near car accident felt like a blessing, because it gave him the chance to hold her close, feeling her heart race in his arms. When Min Min entered the picture, TaiYu stayed quiet, not wanting to complicate things with Zhenshin. But his silence only made things awkward. Eventually, TaiYu opened up. He admitted that the way he treated Zhenshin before was just his way of getting closer to her. He'd listened to everything she said, remembered her likes and dislikes. That's why he'd gotten her the Andy Lau keychain at the store, though he was too embarrassed to tell her it was from him. Later, when Zhenshin casually mentioned it on the phone that everything was fine, TaiYu rushed over to her place, despite feeling weak. It hit him. He had feelings for her, but he couldn't confess because he knew she had feelings for Fei Fan. Still, he secretly hoped she'd include him in her wishes when she saw a shooting star. He'd even shared Zhenshin's habits with Fei Fan, trying to get closer to her. TaiYu knew Zhenshin wanted to study at Taiwan University but struggled with math. So he made her study notes, leaving them with Fei Fan to make it look like Fei Fan had helped her. Fei Fan couldn't hold back as he shared the story of his last encounter with TaiYu, and it hit Zhenshin like a ton of bricks. During their camping trip, TaiYu had secretly gone overseas for surgery after getting wrecked by a series of accidents. Getting hit by a car, slamming his head while roller skating, and pushing himself way too hard with 50 laps that ended up causing blood clots in his brain. TaiYu had kept all of this from Zhenshin, not wanting to burden her. But when she saw him fighting recently, it was only because he wanted to protect her. Zhenshin had no idea, and the truth left her heartbroken. She regretted not knowing earlier, but now it was too late to turn back. Later that night, Zhenshin found herself sitting on the same bench where she and TaiYu used to roller skate together. She put on her headphones and played a message from him. As TaiYu's voice filled her ears, emotions flooded over her. TaiYu had always believed Zhenshin was happy with Fei Fan while he was off with Min Min, both of them helping each other chase after their crushes. When Zhenshin turned around, she was shocked to see TaiYu sitting beside her. He gave her that same familiar smile, then confessed with a mix of sincerity and teasing, "You're short, sometimes silly, and like other people, but I still like you." Hearing that, tears instantly welled up in Zhenshin's eyes. TaiYu's voice crackled as he encouraged her to look up at the night sky, telling her he'd be gazing at the same stars too. He finished the message with a simple, heartfelt, "I love you." Fast forward, and we see Zhenshin at a turning point. It's a night like any other, but everything feels different. As she listens to TaiYu's message again, she flips open her diary and sees his name. A spark of determination lights inside her. The next day, Zhenshin walks into her boss's office, holding her resignation letter like it's the boldest move she's ever made. Her colleagues are stunned. They're used to her quietly taking orders, but today she's different. Today she feels proud. But not everyone is on board. When Zhenshin gets home, her boyfriend is furious. He's worried about the financial mess this could cause. He's scared for the future. But Zhenshin, standing her ground, tells him it's time for them to part ways. She's not backing down. Zhenshin is a huge fan of Andy Lau, and when she finally gets the chance to see him in person, she's a mix of nervousness and disbelief. After all these years, he's still at the top of his game. But as much as she admires him, she can't help but feel a little frustrated. She's never been able to get a ticket to see him live. Zhen Xin walks around the concert area, her eyes following the lucky fans who managed to snag tickets. She sighs and settles for snapping a photo with Andy Lau's poster, letting his songs play from her phone. It's not the same, but it'll do. Just as she's lost in the music, a man walks into the shop, and a keychain drops at his feet. He picks it up, notices it's hers, and approaches with the keychain in hand. Zhenshin turns around, expecting just another customer, but wait, it's Andy Lau standing right in front of her. Andy gives her a calm gesture, telling her not to freak out. He's taking a break from the spotlight and doesn't want any attention. Zhenshin tries to play it cool, acting like she's not a fan, but her cover's blown when she accidentally pulls out her earphones, and Andy's own voice fills the air. She quickly stammers, saying a friend downloaded the song for her. Not the best excuse, Zhenshin. She then tries to show off another song to cover up, but uh-oh, it's a selfie with Andy's poster in the background. To her surprise, Andy laughs it off and isn't bothered. He even asks if they can snap a picture together. Zhenshin's heart skips a beat. She can barely contain her happiness as they pose, her smile stretching from ear to ear. This is the moment. As Andy starts to leave, Zhenshin stops him, holding her breath. "Can I have your autograph?" she asks, even though she's been pretending not to be a fan. Andy's eyebrow raises in surprise, but he agrees, signing it to Lin Truly. He then asks if she was at his concert, and Zhenshin awkwardly admits she missed it because the tickets were sold out. But Andy's got her back. He hands her a number to call for help, telling her she can reach out anytime. Zhenshin is on cloud 9. Later that night, Zhenshin stands outside the concert venue, dialing the number Andy gave her, introducing herself as Lin Truly. To her surprise, it's TaiYu on the other end, casually greeting her with a reference to an old game they used to play. Zhenshin is speechless for a second, but then she hears Andy Lau's voice booming from the big screen, inviting her to join the concert. The show's about to start, and it's dedicated to people who love someone deeply, just like his friend, who made a promise to his first love. Tears well up in Zhenshin's eyes as she hears those words. The concert's not just about music, it's about love. Overcome with emotion, she turns to TaiYu. He asks why she's not inside the concert yet. With a sad sigh, she tells him she doesn't have a ticket. TaiYu, being the problem solver he is, grins and comes up with a plan. He's got an old trick up his sleeve. He grabs some materials and creates a makeshift Andy Lau concert poster. The two share a laugh as they reminisce about the old days, TaiYu's promise, and their friendship. With that, TaiYu walks Zhenshin inside to experience the concert of a lifetime, fulfilling both his promise and his dream of seeing Zhenshin's happiness firsthand. So the moral of the story is, if you ever meet your idol, maybe don't pretend you're not a fan. Your earphones will give you away every time.